Welcome back. We're live with Dream Chasers versus Worst Players. Both of these teams winning their first games. We obviously saw Dream Chasers earlier beating Godsend 2-0. And quite surprisingly, Worst Players beat Hip 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 2-0 too. So this is both teams winning their first games. Whoever wins this one will no doubt be at least qualifying for the playoffs, which will be happening in a couple of weeks. And we're getting into our first map, which is going to be Bind. My name is Ryan Central, and welcome to the EPULZE Valorant Prodigies. I hope you're all doing splendid. And we will have the mostly Russian team of Worst Players attacking first, with the all-Swedish roster of Dream Chasers defending. And it's very hard to say at this point in what direction it's going to go. There's already been a few surprises. Hip's team losing 2-0 is quite shocking, to be honest. The games were fairly close, like 13-8, 13-10, I think they were. So it really did go the distance, mostly, for both those games. Unlike the Godsend game with Dream Chasers, where they won pretty handedly in both occasions. Both teams are ready to sort of go in. You can hear the timer ticking down on the hero select as we're going to go into our first map. Like I mentioned, Dream Chasers are going to be defending first. We can sort of see their lineup, pretty much similar to what they've been running before. Emilio has been mostly playing the Jet, but now we've seen him have a bit more of a different lineup because they have King Cobra playing in instead of Devil Walk. Zaj is still going to be on the Phoenix, and then Kicker switching from the Cypher to a Brimstone. Meanwhile, on Worst Players, Pipson, no doubt, pretty much playing the Brimstone the whole time. Chihuahua again on the Sage. June on Silver. Arch is going to be playing Breach, and Dimasic is on Cypher. Dimasic is from Kazakhstan, which is very interesting considering. But everything should be better set up for this stream too. Fixed a couple of issues here, there. And if you want to see what's happening in the other game, which is going to be Hip 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 versus Godsend, twitch.tv/Kuiper1. Kuiper with double I, and the O in one is a 0, but it is in French. So if you are French speaking, great. But I know that there's a lot of Russians in here. No doubt checking out our guys' Worst Players, which I think have put themselves in to be firm favourites for this game, considering they beat Hip. But they are going to be going down to a 3 versus 4 pretty much straight away. Spike is leaning towards A, but the rotation is going to come in towards Ramp and Hookah. With Breach, Arch holding up C-Long. Needs to be careful of the camera that Safe has planted on this. He's keeping a keen eye just more towards Hookah because obviously that's where the drone is going to be. And the smoke's coming through. Recon Bot's going to not disguise where the Cypher is on site. King Cobra is flanking all the way around Elbow. That's going to catch up Juno and give away his position. And Safe is able to sort of clear up the site, giving Dream Chasers a 1-0 advantage. Hope you're all doing good. I know there's a lot of new faces here for this game. And also, sorry about the delay. I am going to say that it was Dream Chasers' fault. I'm going to out them to be like they were the ones that took their sweet time. But I figured it was worth giving them a bit more time to set themselves up. We want to keep up to date with all of the stats as well. The spike.gg/events to keep an eye on this tournament. Not only going over the tables of the groups, the match scores, but also individual stats. Arch pretty much top fragging for his team so far, with Emilio doing the same in that Godsend game. Because it's going to be different now. Emilio isn't playing as aggressive a character as Jet. Sage, which is pretty much the polar opposite. Pipson is the only one baiting towards A, wherein in fact we could see the rest of the lineup for Worst Players is leaning towards B. I say lean, it's pretty much in there. spamming any traps that they can get rid of for safe, but needs to be careful as King Cobra is holding from a pretty deep angle. Is going to get flashed by the breach, but Arch is taken down by safe. Good protection there. There's currently the Cypher, Dimisic, that's trying to push through Cypher. Safe is going to take them down. King Cobra's still holding this angle, but it's Safe that's the one that's able to get all of these kills. Player that missed out in the last game has been rotated in. Starting to show their worth. We haven't really seen Dream Chasers have a consistent lineup in agents or characters just yet. I think their initial lineup is pretty much Safe, Emilio, Zaj, Kicker, and then Devil Walk. King Cobra is filling in. The broadcast is pretty much all day Elven. There's this game which was supposed to start at 3 PM CST. It's probably about 10 minutes late. Hipson straight away getting a kill with the Incendiary. And following up, actually, with a nice kill. There's more people leaning over there on this defense, and they don't necessarily have guns, as the attacker now starting to be able to buy all of the big guns that they want. The only one now over towards that site was Arch, but he's just been recently taken down. There will be a match later on today, which will be Hip 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 versus Worst Players, casted by another Ryan Isn't Me, Laz. And that will be at 6 PM CEST. Regardless of how fast the games are, these games are going to be scheduled for the same time. It isn't the case of if this game is super fast, then that's going to be it. But speaking of going to be it, it's a 2 versus 1 now. Emilio is the last alive. Like I sort of mentioned before, top fragger for his team is now in a clutch. Position be given up because the Cyber Cage was deployed, and Dimisic is just going to wrap around and get a nice headshot pick with a Phantom. Bringing Worst Players now back into this. So far, neither team really pulling ahead just yet. Taking whatever advantages that they can. Now it's going to be a pretty beefy round in regards to guns. Emilio was pretty much open the whole time on Jet, or at least every time he could afford. Doing a similar thing on the Sage, but has to play a little bit differently, naturally a lot more defensive. Nice lineup, Juno. I'm sure that worked just as intended. Dimisic is trying to push for intel, at least, maybe even a frag, as there are 2 people down there. King Cobra and Safe are holding onto this site fairly deep. Interesting lineup. Usually you have the Sage on this B site, but they've decided to put in Cobra on the Raze, no doubt because of the utility and how strong that can be. The lineup overall from Dream Chasers, especially defensive starting, is incredibly aggressive with 2 duelists. King Cobra is just keeping an eye more onto Hookah, but they need to be careful. Dimisic, who's now gradually peeking all of these angles, it's going to just check for them, but nobody's actually there. In fact, Safe is going to hold very close, but the orbital strike comes onto site. It moves King Cobra. Safe is going to hold very close. And the Page Shell is actually going to hit them. Uses the orbital strike, gets 2, but dies in the process. And so does Safe, so the rotation is now going to come over from the Dream Chasers. There's only 2 alive now. Archer is holding the rotation with the spikes. If he gets the kill here onto Zaj, who's actually very hesitant peeking this angle, the step gives him away, and that engagement is awkward. Arch should not really have lost that. That's a 1 versus 3, and Emilio's going to hold this. Dimisic's not even looking in that direction. Fairly easy cleanup. I feel like that was a big misplay from the Worst Players, who in that engagement did look like the worst players, but some awkward plays. They had the right idea. Arch, I think if he got the kill onto Zaj, would have a nice clean rotate towards the A site, really moving and manipulating the defense to move from either side very quickly, but was a bit too eager and awkwardly caught out. A lot of ultimates used on this defense too. Now Emilio's just going to keep an eye on there. But again, it looks like it's this B side that's going to be hit. Pipson again trying to bait towards A, but is doing so on his own. Needs to be careful that Zaj isn't going to aggressively push and catch him out. But the rest of this lineup is going to be pushing down B along with very little pistols. In some cases, guns and others. So it's very much forcing from this attack. No, that's still reeling from that last one. That last round. Keycobra is taken down. Now it's just going to be safe holding on this site as the rest of his team rotates. So just wants to survive. But Chihuahua's going to be one that's sort of pushing up above. Needs to be a bit careful behind him, as that's exactly where Zaj is going to be pushing from. But Pipson was holding there. That neural theft is going to give up the position of Zaj, who wants to play aggressively, does get a pick onto Arch, is going to hot hands into that corner, he's going to catch somebody out, forces the movement from Juno. Now it's a 1 versus 2, and the hot hands getting used, gives away exactly where the Sage is. But she's going to just move around a little bit. It's Chihuahua. Dimasic are going to hold on sight, away from this retake, probably head the clump, and easy for the two of them to set up a crossfire to get that kill. Nice round, actually, from worst players. Good use of the neural theft, but it still did force Zaj to get him to bleed a little bit. Obviously using the run it back ultimate as well, which provided a good amount of intel, but didn't get the frags that he necessarily wanted. In terms of economy, both of which are pretty much buying whatever they can. It's going to be a force from King Cobra, who's going to be holding onto a Bucky. It's going to be holding this off angle. As they're playing now 3 onto B, as it keeps getting hit over and over again. Surely if Pipson could scout a bit more intel and maybe even get a frag onto A, the rotation could come in. But regardless, actually, it's coming in anyway. And Emilio's going to rotate. Is hesitant to go over to the A site completely, but would be wise to do so. Of course, we have that hindsight. Pipson's trying to clear up the rest of it. And the push is starting to come through here, I imagine. Actually, the wall being used to block off U-Haul means it won't be placed for this set lineup, which could be a bit of a mistake as Emilio punishes him for it. And just to get a kill onto Pipson as well, so he's able to sort of control this. The plant is no doubt going to come in shortly from Chihuahua. In fact, decides to dedicate the Resurrect, who immediately gets taken down. Chihuahua awkwardly taken out, so now it's a 2 versus 1. Emilio, who's done so well so far, is wanted to put this one to bed, and Chihuahua dedicating the Resurrect didn't necessarily work to their favour. Ideally, Emilio holds that one off again. It feels like worst players have the right idea with these kind of pushes, but I would have preferred to see them use the wall if I could bring up the map. They used the wall here to block off this area of the map. I don't know if I can, like, I can't ping it because of, you can't do that as a spectator. Whereas they usually sort of put it down here to sort of block this area of the site off, get a safe plant in, and just hold a very safe retake. Of course, you give up the majority of this site when you do so, but that's often like the play of a lot of pro teams. Put a wall down here, get the spike planted there, but they used the wall here and were completely open to the storm. It was still this defense, and namely Emilio. Pipson's just trying to control this area of the map. I think worst players have the right idea by having everybody on each of the corners, gradually going, okay, there's nobody pushing towards toilets. It takes all the attention from players like Kika, who are now so scared that there is somebody there and that's the direction that they're going to push. You might even see Juno decided to go in that direction, but instead rotates towards B. Not at this point, Archer's gradually started to push through Hookah. Keeps a keen eye on somebody pushing, but of course we can see from the minimap, really is slow and gradual. It's patient, I suppose, would be the better word, from Dream Chasers, who don't need to engage at all hard, but King Cobra knows that there's somebody nearby, has the Vandal from an off angle, but is going to give away their position because of the obvious one, but there's a lot of utility thrown in. In fact, the Rolling Thunder is going to be used. We could even see that come through, but the flash, the tripwise, jumping on. The orbital strike's going to be good, though. It's actually going to catch out Arch. Narrowly survives. It even gets a kill onto Kicker. Didn't take any form of damage. The side's coming in. There's only going to be 2 people left on this defense. Safe for the operator, though. He's going to check the camera and gets a good amount of information. Probably too much to actually know what to do with. And Saj, again, is going to push through Hookah behind him. Really likes his aggressive pushes. We saw it in the game against Godsent. He's decided to check behind him. Now he's the only one alive. Safe really needed his help there. He wasn't readily available to them. He coming up to show exactly where they are to the attackers that are now playing defense for this retake, and Zaj is just trying to clear impossible angles, and that's a really nice double peek actually coming out of worst players. They knew where he was. They knew that Zaj just wanted to take those engagements, isolate those 1v1s, so worst players were like, we'll both peek him at the same time. He can't kill both of us, right? Unless he's god tier, but didn't necessarily work out. Both of these teams making more mistakes. I don't really feel like we've seen much individual play other than, of course, Emilio on that defense. King Cobra coming in as a stand-in is providing a lot of damage and a lot of scary things towards B. A's looking to be hit, and it might be hit with a relative sense of tempo. Guns again being affordable, as both these teams, as you can see from the score, trading rounds 1 by 1. Pipson's going to keep an eye on that. And again, the rush coming in. I don't think we've seen the wall come through just yet. Or maybe it wasn't affordable. Maybe they bought guns instead of that. But I don't necessarily see if they've placed it down. Pipson caught people out that aggressively pushed him. Like, really likes holding this area. And now starting to make advantage of it. The defense is going to be rotating all the way around. All 3 of them having their ultimate. So seems that they're going to take a very keen route. Giving it a wide berth. The only one playing a bit closer is going to be Safe, who has a decision to make. He can't jump over that tripwire. He either sets it off or he destroys it, but decided that he can do neither and doesn't want to give up that positioning. Whilst Pipson is holding this angle, because they know that they have the Cypher tripwire there, that it's like, oh, if they'd gone in that direction, we'd know because the tripwire would be destroyed, so they have a good indication of this is where they're pushing. Obviously, there's no time at all anymore to try and defuse this spike. Emilio still manages to get the kill as we go 4-all on score. Now start to see worst players string a few rounds together. Looked good when doing so. We hadn't really necessarily seen them hit the A site, but now that we have, we might start to do it a bit more, as the B site is so difficult for them to try and take. But once they get hold of it, these retakes are really struggling in the side of Dream Chasers, who so far haven't managed to get a defuse at all yet. But most of these have been eliminations more than the spike being diffused. Last round that we saw was the only time that the spike really proved dividends. Gibson again leading the lines into the toilet. There's 4 people holding on this defense. Orbital Strike is going to be used. Isn't quite sure yet where to plant it, but is going to plant it right in the middle of the site. The wall going up is going to sort of bounce off, but the rush is now starting to come in from the attack. King Cobra manages to get 2. Does eventually get trade by Chihuahua. Safe is holding the line towards toilets. There is going to be Chihuahua there. He's going to run away. He's on his own, but manages to get 1, but can't run away from all of the remaining members of Dream Chasers. Both these teams having really long, awkward names to try and remember. I don't have the assets that you're seeing on screen, so I have to do it all by memory, which I think I'm doing a pretty good job of, to be honest. You can see exactly how Safe likes to set up on the B site. We're going to see a run it back dedicated very early. Actually going through the teleport towards B, and that's where the spike is. So if Saj can get this kill, peeking around this corner, he can't, but he knows somebody's there. Doesn't have intel that that's exactly where the spike is. Doesn't even know necessarily who was there because he obviously wasn't looking. So not too much intel was really grabbed by the Phoenix. Pipson's in the same position we look at every single time we switch to him, so we're going to let him do what he's doing. Juno, with the Hunter's Fury, has the spike. killed the apparition, the Zaj on the Phoenix that we just saw, but that's a pretty meaningful kill. Goes on to Chihuahua, who did have the Resurrect. That could be a big ultimate to start to swing things back in their favor yet again. The positioning of Dimasic is going to be given up on this attack. You just need to be careful of where Emilio's holding with the operator. Just Emilio, with that sniper, with that AWP, is always scaring him. Now he's playing a much more aggressive angle. Not necessarily expecting it. Arch just didn't check that corner at all. That's going to be held down pretty strongly by one of the MVPs on this Dream Chasers side. Juno is very tentative about going to that site now, so it's going to rotate around, but they're going to run into Zaj, who isn't holding in that direction. Pipson is obviously in the toilet still, as you can see from the minimap, but nothing else is really happening on this side. There's not really going to be enough time to plant, so we are going to see worst players giving this one up and just saving. Pipson might be able to get a frag, but has to try and bait out what Safe is doing, and Safe has been playing very safely recently. Juno does get a kill. Killing Zaj, who was, meandering around the area of the map. Both these teams just struggling to get some momentum going. Really taking chunks out of each other, and we at least know that the defending side of Dream Chasers is going to go into halftime even. But that's all that they can say for certain. They could go in with an advantage if they can get the next 2 rounds, but obviously West players don't want to let that happen. Regards to ultimates, again, King Cobra having the showstopper. Got a couple of kills last time it was used, but wants to find a similar amount of use. But this defense, this attack, sorry, Chihuahua having the Resurrect, never really got to use it last round. Could have been decisive if they had it still, if he was still alive, but this B site's so tricky to hold, especially against 3 people. Really bolstering it. And Arch and Pipson are just trying to just tease on A. Nobody's aggressively pushing. Maybe they want Zaj to try and aggressively peek them, so they're just holding an off angle, but I'm not really a fan of this playstyle. I understand it, but eventually they're going to run into problems, and it's a sign, I suppose, of being scared. It's certainly not knowing where Emilio is, who constantly keeps changing up his positioning, making it really awkward to hold on to. Chihuahua's going to finally get that Resurrect in. All these ultimates need to be used within the next 2 rounds. Again, Chihuahua using this wall to block it off, but I feel like that's more of a way of blocking off a way that they can take space as opposed to deny it. Now we see the showstopper being used. It's going to kill Juno, who was holding onto the spike. Does get flashed by the breach, who pushes all the way around, but Arch is going to be taken out by Cobra as soon as it drops, but Cobra now getting free. Can't do it again, but Pipson just clears out completely. I don't think he's allowed out of this toilet area. He's just in there the whole time, like his team's dying, and he's just eventually going to go and help them, but they weren't expecting him to push for that angle, and let's throw people. I'm really mad that I missed that shot, but nobody could have predicted that was going to happen. Easily predicted Pipson's going to be sat in the toilet somewhere. That was a big round. Now we are on to the penultimate one of this side with 4 ultimates available. Are we close to having any others available? Kicker, yeah, could have an Orbital Strike. Dimasic could have Neural Theft. But they definitely have the Hunter's Fury and the Orbital Strike on this attack. Certainly after that with Pipson. The Neural Theft and the Resurrect is available on this defense. Dream Chasers trying to make sure that they keep this attack guessing by switching up where people are playing. Zaj is just free roaming. He's a jungler. Lurking on the defense, which you don't often see, but seems to be working. There's going to be a multitude of people pushing through there, and Pipson, for the first time ever, isn't in toilets. He's actually going to follow up his team. They're pushing towards Hookah, but Emilio's got a keen eye on it. Smoke's going to come through. He's going to peek at the last second to maybe catch somebody that's a bit too eager. Their position is going to be given up. An Orbital Strike is going to start ticking away at Emilio. Doesn't actually get any form of kills. That Cyber Cage from Safe is going to slow them down a little bit. And the Spy Dart, which Pipson's basically stood on, was above. Position had been switched up every single time. The Satchel doesn't get much, and the Orbital Strike does delay this attack again. But Kicker going in behind is the thing that decides that one. As we do see Dream Chasers going into the halftime with a 7-5 advantage. Scoreboards are wrong, so we'll swap that around. But these are currently the halftime scores. King Cobra really showing a strong use in Emilio, even when he isn't playing on the Jet. Still able to outfrag. Maybe they're changing their lineup, obviously, because they have King Cobra in. Maybe they're changing it because they respect this team a little bit more than they did Godsend. Playing much more safe. And I suppose that would be the case when you hear that the team that you're playing now beat Hip's team, which you'd consider to be easily one of the top 10 lineups. I think Jerome from Prodigy said that he rated him top 3. I'd sort of rate them in between. I'd say top 5, but narrowly. Could be 3rd, could be 7th. There's a lot of teams in and around that area. And very much one of those teams could be worst players, honestly. Nothing done yet on the pistol round so far. Nothing dedicated, nothing given away. This defense seems to be lined up with still 3 on this defense. Dimmer 6 is... Yeah, can't hear any clomping just yet, but might be able to hear where Pipson is just around this corner. Sorry, not Pipson, Kicker. Spee is looking to be the site hit. All of this intel hasn't been given away just yet, but as soon as Dimmer 6 sees somebody, all those calls are going to come in, and the cyber cages and the smokes may drop. Defense now coming in. Chihuahua doesn't have the wall, puts down the slow orb, preferred to have the ghost and a core bit of utility, but backs away all the way into elbow. Pipson is still holding it. I don't know why I keep switching to Pipson. He's always doing something really dull. Other than, you know, killing 4 people, that's all he's really done. But Emilio is holding back. He's the only one alive now, and still at despite, just let his team run onto the site one by one. I am not a keen observer, I will admit that. It's a good round to win. Certainly if you're worse players. Had an impeachable defense setup, especially a pistol round, but just had the numbers, I feel, on the B site, which typically you tend to see more teams run 3 defenders on A and 2 on B. And this is an aggressive toilet hold that is potentially going to run into Emilio through these smokes. Juno was keeping a close eye on it, but decided to back out, and probably a wise decision considering Kicker, King Cobra, and Safe are scouting for intel. None of it necessarily given away. The camera is still... Oh no, never mind. It isn't up anymore for Safe, as it destroyed pretty much instantly, but goes super low. There's some really nice scouting shots from Juno, who's now holding in the smoke. And it's very much scared away this attack. So Dream Chasers now restructuring themselves, but they do spot where the brimstone is, and I guess more importantly spot that there is nobody ramp. So now you start to see the defense on this B site push a bit more aggressively, scout if there's anybody there, and they'll know that it's going to be an A site fairly soon as all of the utility starts to flow in. This is the wall I was talking about. Dream Chasers using it to try and give themselves a bit of space to get the plant in. King Cobra is going to watch closely, but can't watch close enough, really, because he is 16 health. He's going to run into where the Sage is. Even goes low. Must have taken damage through the wall bang, but Pipson from distance is going to put that one to bed. Emilio is in this U-Haul alongside Safe. They're both being walled off from behind them. So this diffuse could come in, actually. Like, this is quite good. Like, it sort of put them in between a rock and a hard place, and Safe needed to force themselves. Pipson is able to get 4. Cleans it up as we go even in score. We're breaking even. 7-all now between both these sides. Now this is where you start to see maybe Dream Chasers being able to buy a big gun, or bigger guns than they had before. And the money on the side of worst players isn't necessarily great. They just got to try and make do. Try and hold on to this momentum that they have on this defending side. As you can see, buying big guns, but not necessarily dedicated to full armor. This will be an aggressive push coming out of this defense. With Flashpoint lining up, no doubt. Decided to go against it. Didn't want to bait that that's what they were doing, but now I've decided to do so. Kicker gets one, but gets traded. Emilio's pushing in the toilets, but it's the close hold of Dimisic that I want to be holding out. They both don't peek him, but Zaj is able to, again, make sure that they trade. They don't give an advantage too much to this defense, because we're currently in a 3 versus 3. Bind is now starting to unconstrict itself. Now that there's less players on the field, more ground for each of them to cover individually, but that's not anything that Arch is afraid of, as he's going to push aggressively in behind. Isn't going to hear any steps, but here's the Resurrect, so there's a good indication of that's where they wanted to dedicate to, but they need to be careful behind him. That rotation coming in, and Archie misses all of his shots and can't necessarily push it a bit harder because of the rope. The tripwire. Zaj, again, able to sort of put his team on top. From a 3 versus 3 to a 4 versus 2, the defenders are now unsure of what side they want to hold. Rotation coming in now. Hipson is going to go back towards the B site, awkwardly. Juno's there too. They haven't necessarily guessed that the planet's coming in. Wall, to an extent, is wasted. Zardish is going to kill himself up, but I'm assuming from the lack of reaction from this defense that they're just happy to sort of save. Arch was a bit too aggressive, tried to do a bit too much. I think just having the intel alone that the Resurrect happened at the bottom of ramp. Like if I'm here, if I'm doing like on-the-fly analysis whilst we have like 20 seconds to break, Arch pushed up to here. I don't know if you could see the mouse, but... Oh yeah, you can because it's in black on the stream, which is good. Heard the Resurrect around here. If I was him, I'd be like, alright, back off a little bit, but wanted to be aggressive, tried to get a nice cheeky pick as they were rotating in. But if he knew that they were rotating and their position wasn't given away, the rest of the lineup that was over here wasn't sure where to go, could preemptively set up for that, right? That would be my take, at least. But instead, there's a bit overzealous, tried to aggressively get a pick. Really opened up the sights and just harder to hold when you have less people. Especially with that Resurrect coming in clutch. But now, Dream Chasers have a bit of a lead. West players want to bring themselves back. They have the money to do so. This is going to be another pretty hefty round. A few ultimates almost ready to go on either side. Because I've just been super aggressive with these run-it-backs. They want to consider doing something differently, or similar, sorry, on this attack. Especially with his Sage and Raze pushing into toilets, he could gauntlet this and see what he can find out. Have to take a few breaks because I'm solo casting and I've never done this before. It's quite interesting though. This is more like it, I suppose. Like the smoke's coming in. This is a hard engagement with the ultimate. He's able to get a kill onto Pipson. But Juno on the silver is able to kill the Phoenix Salt. But that's all he can really do. They've taken all of this space. And that's a really actually good aftershock. It could have done some damage or at least scared him away a little bit. And Arch is very aggressive here. Runs into the hot hands. And Zaj is able to get 4. He's willing to follow through. 3 even. Wants to make it 4. Might make it 4 if he spots where the Sage is. But no, Chihuahua holding into middle. And looks like again we're going to see this defense save. Both these teams won their first game. They want to at least qualify. Hard to say whether they're going to top their group, but they're going to do what they can. Chihuahua from distance, actually. Really nice shot, but Cobra's going to nip that one in the bud. Make sure that none of this defense are able to save. First play is his lead. Very much starting to slip away. Now they're very much having to full eco this. Or at least try and force with a couple of judges, a couple of sheriffs. I just want it to force. It might be wiser for them to just try and do a bit of a half buy, make sure that they have 2k for the next round, buy full next. All you can really hope for. There's still a few rounds to play left. Desperate attempts don't need to come in just yet, unless they have some pretty zany strategies or ultimates available. But Pips have been taken up pretty much straight away. Getting Arch on this mad flank was enough, and Before you know it, flawless round for the attackers. Cobra coming in and doing the Lord's work, it seems like. Actually, no, Emilio is overtaking him on kills and has a better KD because he's died a lot less. But kills-wise, there isn't too much that separates them, really. Pipson and Chihuahua both getting 12 frags, so only a couple behind. Good portion of the Dream Chasers. Again, trying to put their finger in as many pies as possible. Zaj is holding in this smoke, and Pipson is aggressively peeking. Could be caught out here, really, because there are two people. As soon as this smoke drops, he could be very much ambushed if he's not careful. But decides to just back out completely. Holding on to this toilets area, nothing really done to yet. Not too much to talk about. Defense, though, now having full guns and moderate armor, to say the least, have 4 ultimates available. But right now, they don't need to do anything. This is no doubt a plan devised from the attack now that is wanting to push towards U-Haul. Got a flash around this corner, ends up flashing himself, and the orbital strike used onto U-Haul to make sure that that's barricaded off. Emilio's position has been given away, so they're going to back off. Plant is still going to go down. It's not some bizarre rotation, but that's going to be an orbital strike. Hits onto the side, gets Kicker, who had the spike planted down. Saj is still here, can get it placed. The wall is still there to protect them to an extent, and the plant needs to come in relatively soon as the timer will start to drop. Aldron gives them a lot of intel, so Juno now knows exactly where people are going to be. There's more keeping an eye on this doorway, where there was Emilio, but not necessarily anymore. Another ultimate Azaj, who's trying to find some information, is going to run into Chihuahua, just again not looking in the right direction, but doesn't matter too much. The ult was dedicated. Juno as well trying to clear, and that's a very aggressive res that's actually used on this defense. Just 2 alive now. Safe is holding into this U-Haul. A lot of time being bought. Juno is able to kill Zaj, and the defuse is trying to go in. Might be faked. Juno's just going to keep a nice eye on it in the nick of time. Really well played from the Silver to provide all of that intel. Fumbled lines a little bit from the attack, but they're going to be more upset the big ultimates were dedicated, but really good defense from worst players, to be honest. Quite hold. Juno's going to pick that corner, but misses the shot as it's a pretty wide flank coming out of Zadish. Zadish? Is how you... Zadish. I'm pretty sure at least. Trapwire's going to give him up, but Juno obviously has that intel, can see for the ping, the shape that is shown even through smokes. You know, scary with this operating from distance, but yet we're still seeing this attack pushing through here. Dream Chasers trying to smoke him off, try to get as close as possible, but they are going to start to go through. And again, Kicker tripped over a tripwire, and Juno can easily follow up with a kill, even without being able to actually see him. That was really well played from Safe, actually using the wall to try and get a nice scattered position, but this is going to be Juno with the ultimate now. Doesn't necessarily tag anybody, but has a general inkling of where they are now. Tags them towards the end, but Neurofeft is going to give up his positioning as well as the rest of the 4 surviving members of worst players. 4 versus 3 now. They have a retake to play for. This is going to be a rolling thunder coming through from Arch that's trying to overextend, get the picks. Didn't necessarily hit everybody, but now King Cobra is the last one alive. It's a 1 versus 2, and the breach is really low. Arch is on a small amount of health, but the curtains dropping with that wall, and now that position giving up. King Cobra with 3 kills, able to bring themselves just 2 rounds away from this victory. Really well played. Like, a lot of ultimates were dedicated on this defense. Hunter's Fury, Rolling Thunder, all of which pretty much missing. King Cobra now having the Showstopper and the Resurrect, so these are pretty big high impact ultimates. Again, on this A push is pushing pretty hard. Throwing the pig shot close, just in case there's anybody on that angle, but it allows them to play a bit faster now that they know that nobody's there. Smokes are going to conceal them, not give away necessarily where they are, but has an inkling towards the CT doors, but doesn't quite catch anybody. And Chihuahua actually able to get a couple of kills, but dies in the process. Juno now holding on this defense is trying to scout out exactly where they are, but the remaining members of this attack are running towards Elbow. Trying to wrap around. Could even rotate to A if they wanted to here, if they don't want to give it up, and that's precisely what they're going to do. They do get tagged by a few shots. Recon Bolt does give them up. I think the Recon Bolt actually hit safe, so gave up both of them throughout the whole process of that Recon Bolt going off. Rotation is going to come out fierce on this defense that are very much prepared for going in this direction. It's going to be a pretty difficult hold off for both of these. You can see Pipson going on a bit of a wide flank because he isn't necessarily sure where the attackers are. Zaj is so low on health too. It's going to flash around this corner. He's positionally giving up, but Juno has a good inkling and could just spray them down. He's going to find exactly where the last member of Dream Chasers is. Safe has to try and do so much with 3 people generally looking at him. Kills 1. He's trying to just peek. Forced into an engagement. Sprays down another. The defuse has been dropped. It's been dedicated to actually. Juno managed to get that in clearly and finish off save. It was very much touch and go there for a second, but this is very much going the distance, as you'd sort of expect from both of these teams. So far, so intense. I'm trying to pace myself, but it's so difficult when these teams are just taking rounds off each other. Economy is awkward for both these teams, but these rounds are so important that they don't want to necessarily give them up. Again, going to and fro with how they're taking their rounds, but ultimately it's Dream Chasers that are on top. 2-round lead, but could easily drop. These attacks so far haven't been insane by Dream Chasers, have been more awkward than anything. Juno has started to show up a bit more on this defense, showing why Silver is a bit of a staple pick, but again, it's expected people to push out of toilets. It's smoked off on the side where mid is being pushed. The Pips are getting walled off completely. Emilio is going to push through this angle, tries to gauntlet and isn't the one holding the spike. Juno is just rotating around somewhere fierce. Trying to give them up, and that Recon Bolt is actually going to show up exactly where they were, but they weren't expecting King Cobra. His positioning wasn't shown up at all. And now taking U-Haul, and it is just the one left. It is just going to be Chihuahua. He's no doubt going to try and save. It's going to be pretty much near on impossible to take this round, but maybe getting a few exit frags might help. But it does mean that they will go onto match point with Dream Chasers, meaning that worst players need to try and do something to bring this one up. I think it's fair to say whoever wins out of these two teams will definitely be qualifying for the playoffs in a group that I think is very much open for anybody to take now, especially with Hip losing that first game. You were set to put them leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else. That might not necessarily be true anymore.
Joke's over! You're dead!
So just dedicating the ult. Just providing intel, even though information is good information in some cases, but only now 2 alive on this defense. It's all pretty much up to them. Juno's just trying to wrap around this wall. He's forced through this gauntlet though with U-Haul. That's why that wall is so good, and it's an area where Zaj is keeping a very close eye on it. It's holding awkwardly, but Zaj is able to get his third. He's going to heal himself up in a position that we can't even necessarily see, but Chihuahua again has to do something. Can't save here. This is the last round, and it is going to be Dream Chasers taking the first map in pretty exciting fashion. Both these teams really going the distance. I think just the defense, well, the attacking side, I think, from worst players really didn't pay off too well. But it was pretty good fashion. I'm pretty impressed with that. Just having a look at the scores, and you can get all of the info regarding how people did. But Emilio again, top fragging. Pretty much going to be top of kills for the whole of the day. I think Zaj and King Cobra did a lot. A few ping problems overall, but that's the scores, 13-9. Can have a good look. I'll just turn my lights back on. It's very warm in here, I might add. But what did we think of that? Was that going the way that we expected? But I'm very impressed with both of these teams. Like, very tight between them. I don't really think there's going to be much distance between, well, both these teams, and also Hip as well. I think Godsend is the only one that's sort of struggling a little bit. Speaking of which, if you give me 1 second whilst I check my laptop. It seems that Hip's team are 8-2 up. Could be the second map, could be the first, it's hard to say, but I assume they're still on the first map and it just started a little bit later. But I think we do have a couple of ping issues, like we sort of mentioned. So, whilst teams sort themselves out, we will go for a very quick break. The Dream Chasers do go 1-0 up. I don't know if I'm surprised. What about you guys? Like, a lot of worst player fans in here, a lot of Russians certainly cheering for their lineup, the majority of which are Russian. There are a couple, there's Arch being Ukrainian and Dimsik being from Kazakhstan, apparently. Juno, Chihuahua and Pipson are all Russian. Did that go the way that you were hoping or expected? I am curious to hear what you guys think in the comments, in Twitch chat even, turning this into a YouTube video. The Dream Chasers will be pretty happy with the lead that they've set themselves up for. But we'll see if that continues as we go into the next map, which I assume will be Haven, but I'll be able to get all of that details with you when these teams are sorted out. But for now, at least, thank you very much for staying tuned in. We will have the next map shortly, after a quick bio break. So don't go anywhere, and we'll see you guys very soon.